It's like I think I've I've got a handful of different, singing techniques I've learned over the years, or teaching techniques, or all these different things that you piece together,
Sure.
and and then this is called the Alexander technique.
Mm-hmm. Right. Uh-oh, you froze. The video froze.
Things there's
Ah,
these
there we go. There was a little freeze there in the screen.
oh
So that's what you said. You have these techniques, and here's another technique.
well, yeah, it's like, and so when I saw Alexander technique, heard great things about it, my brain thinks there's going to be all these things I can do. And then once I do those things, I'm going to have this great new technique. And I
Mm,
think,
No, sorry to disappoint you. It's
I think,
kind of, this is more like a pre-technique. This
mm,
is like you've learned certain things that work, that you know work for you and your classes and whatever. You don't want to bring another thing like that into the equation because your conscious brain doesn't have room for that. But those processes that you have found useful, you just maybe want to add the thought that you're using them with greater ease.
so it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely not. No, no. This is what we're interested in as Alexander teachers is not so much what you do. I mean, it's helpful to know, but we're interested in how you can do whatever you're doing because you want to do it, how you can do that more easily,
Mhm.
less strain.
Yes.
That's what we're about. We're very unlikely to ever tell someone, you really shouldn't do that at all because it's just causing you trouble. Um, I mean, I can imagine a few exceptions to that. Like if you have a client who's a student of the Alexander Technique and their chosen profession is working in a coal mine with a 4-foot high shaft,
Mm.
sure, you could do that better than you have been doing it, but honestly, it's gonna be a long shot because the demand is so unusual. But
So
we're
when you,
not talking about that kind of thing.
oh,
Or
no.
even, I would say for some, this is a little more controversial, but for some people who want to be ballerinas, you think carefully about what's involved there because you could be really good and pull it off, but look at the history of people in that profession, and they drop like flies because it's not kind of not really designed to be standing on our toes. So a lot
Yeah.
of there are few that can really pull it off, and there's many who can pull it off for a while, and then suddenly their career comes crashing to an end because it's a demand that's kind of a little outside of what your structure is really designed to do.
Yeah.
You're well within the range of normal things. You're not pushing any limits in that way. So it's just a question of bringing a little ease into what you're doing.
I like that. That helps. I think that I was trying to think, well, I need to throw out some things that I've learned and replace it with this.
You just want to learn to do them a little better.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
might find that some of them will be more effective than you thought, and you might find that you might change the mix a little, just over time, just because it seems like a useful thing to do. But you don't need to worry about that. You just want more ease. Let the details sort themselves out.
Okay.
That's how I would look at it.
Yeah, I like that. That pre-technique. Would you call Alexander technique a technique of thought?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a technique of thought. It's about using your conscious brain to use your thinking ability to make useful changes in how you function
Wow.
over the course of a day.
Mhm.
That's really what it's about. Alexander um, talks a lot in his books about it's his books are not always easy reading. I don't necessarily suggest reading them at this point, but you could play with them. Uh, he talks about where most of us are operating on a lower plane of direction, where we're kind of doing things the way we do them based on how it feels. And his big thing was actually your feelings are not necessarily reliable. Better to use your brain to um, be the guide to how you do things.
Mhm.
You get more, it's a more effective process. And he talked about going on to a higher plane of existence and stuff. Who knows? I mean, he was writing at the turn of the century, early in the early 20th century, and he had a lot of ideas that are a little strange, but he basically thought we really needed to use our brains
Yeah.
more effectively in terms of how we do things.
Oh, absolutely. I myself have done a lot of deep diving, really spiritually into like the power of things beginning with thought and being cognizant about what you actually think about. Like think about what you think about
And
because those things,
what we're adding is think about how you put that
yes,
into reality. Not just thinking about what it means, but how to actually improve the way
yes,
you do whatever you're doing. And this applies to anything. I mean, reading, doing audiobooks or chopping vegetables doesn't matter really.
mm,
It's the same basic idea.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's helpful. I really appreciate it. You know, I think this is the first time I'm walking away from our lesson feeling like I'm starting to wrap my head around it.
Takes some people a lot longer than that, I can tell you.
Well, I certainly know that I still have a lot of growing to do, but um, I appreciate it. I feel like I'm starting to understand it a little bit more of a wider range, I guess.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks, it's been good practice.